Focus, a college football podcast. We have a Seminole and a Gator together, trying to put aside their differences and bring you the fantastic world of college football. Thank you for joining us on this ride of hype, hope, and hilarity. My name is Brandon, and I'm joined by Chris. Today we want to remind you about our Patreon account. We want to recap the Florida State and Florida games. We'll also whip around the state and give you a recap of those games, give you a preview of what you're going to expect the upcoming week, do a preview for the other schools, and we'll remind you of our touch points and also talk to you about a recent interview and give a little feedback there. So how you feel about today's show, my friend?
Pretty good. Probably a little bit better than you are feeling, and I feel your pain because I was there last week.
Ooh, yeah.
I really felt sorry for you. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the Gator fan in me liked to see FSU lose.
I understand.
But I had you in mind, and I did feel bad for you. I'm happy that we won. A lot of stuff to work on for the Gators, but a W's a W.
Absolutely. Florida State's going to say that a lot.
Yeah.
The few that we're going to come by. So,
Yeah.
Real quickly before we do the games, patreon.com/Florida Focus Podcast. We have 2 tiers where you can become a subscriber. $1 a month gets you our private Facebook page. $5 a month gets you a welcome package and secret episodes. I even added a goal on the page just for a little fun.
Okay.
We kind of set a goal initially to have 5 subscribers, and if we get to that point, I'm going to shave off my beautiful beard. So I'll put my my facial hair on the docket there. So let's get up to 5, guys.
And if we get to 10, I'm going to try to grow one.
Okay.
Which is significantly harder because I've been trying for all my life and no success.
Okay. Well, there you go,
But
guys.
if we get to 10, I'm going to put the old college try and do my best.
So people that were on the fence, that's all the motivation they needed right there.
Exactly, yeah. Maybe I'll invest in Rogaine or whatever that stuff is.
Get you some vitamins, get the hair,
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll follow our usual format here. I'll let you start, Chris, with the recap of the Florida Gator game, so I'll give you the floor. How do you feel like they did against the Rams of Colorado State?
This is a weird game. It really was. The score, if you just look at the score, it looks like a normal blowout of a lesser team. But it was just an odd game in that the first quarter, it was kind of evenly matched, but we come out, 6-0, nothing. And it was weird because we had forced some turnovers, but all we could do was muster up 6 points. We had great field position, but we really couldn't do anything with it. Frank started off 0 for 6, and it was just a weird game. But then our special teams stepped up.
Yeah.
We not the first one really technically wasn't a block punt because the punter fumbled it, but we get credit for that. Then we get another block punt, which ends up being a touchdown. And then Freddie Swain, who is becoming a playmaker recently, he takes a punt for a touchdown. So our special teams really was the story of the game. Our field goal kicker, he kicked 2 field goals. He was good on that. We had a punt return that went pretty far before Swain's, I think it was 83, 87-yard punt return. So the special teams kept us separated until our offense later on figured out what they were doing, and we got the running game going. They kind of, we knew that they are good at coming back from behind.
Right.
They almost did that against Hawaii. They did successfully do that against Arkansas. So when they came out of the third quarter and they scored a touchdown, we're thinking, okay, here we go again. But our defense responded and our offense responded, and we put up 21 in the fourth. And it was a weird game. It was just kind of like our defense was decent. Our offense at times was really good. At times was real sad, but our special teams was solid the whole game, which I really like, but I don't want us to get comfortable just relying on special teams. I like that we emphasize that, and I like that we're good at it, but I want special teams and another facet of the game to be strong, not just special teams and we'll get by on defense and offense, But I like that we won. I'm very happy we won. I liked how we finished. I was very happy with that, and I was really pleased with how we got the running game going on, which eventually opened up the passing game. But still, Frank's he looks a little up and down, and a little concerning. But it's only 3 games into the season, 3 games into that offense.
Yeah.
And Dan Mullen made it very clear that he is the guy, the leash is long, and where he's sticking with Franks. So we'll go with him, and we'll take the win. I really don't know, if you bench Franks, is Trask that much better? Is Jeremy Jones better? I don't think so. So I still think Franks is your best guess, but he's just he's up and down. Receivers are doing okay. Running back stepped up, and our defense stepped up. Especially the D line and our linebackers played it outstanding. I mentioned last game that they were non-existent. Kentucky just ran up the gut a lot. Linebackers made a difference in this game, and the D ends made a difference in this game. So a lot of positives, but still a lot of stuff to work on too. That's my initial thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen a lot more Colorado State than I would have planned on because they played in week 0 and
right.
Playing some other games, and I knew they were coming up on the Gator schedule. So, yeah, some of my thoughts for them, that touchdown drive was really the only time maybe Florida secondary looked suspect. And
right.
you can expect some of that. And, there's so many guys out with injury, that's also going to impact how the secondary looks. Yes, the special teams, absolutely. Now, there were a couple of times where I was a little surprised. The Gators did have to use a timeout. They ended up taking a delay of game on a punt. So that was one small thing to work on. And then they gave up a pretty decent return to Colorado State. I think about 50 yards.
Yeah, they did do that.
Other than that, just about near perfect. I mean, you look at it over the full season, I'm just nitpicking together small things there they can work on, really.
Yeah.
Back to Franks real quick. I really had a twofold question. Do you think the 119 yards passing was enough, and what do you think about his pocket presence so far?
The 119 is not enough. I'd like to see him in the 200s every game. But I think more importantly, I want the interceptions to be low. And he had one this game early on, but he figured it out. It's just sometimes he knows what he's doing, and sometimes he doesn't. And I don't really know. I can't quite make it. Like, I don't know if it's a mental thing or if it's just a confidence thing. It needs to be improved. But I think they did something in the second half, which I've been screaming this whole year, is start with the running game. Mm-hmm. Start with the running game, get him comfortable, then he'll throw. And they did that. They started with the running game. They on first downs, got in front of the sticks, and then takes the pressure off him, and then he looked confident. But he comes out of the gate most of the time throwing, and which is great if he connects, but he's not connecting. So like the first drive, it was 3rd and short, and the running back leaks out, and he is wide open. I mean, Franks kind of rolls a little bit to the right, and Scarlett goes to the left, and he leaks out, and no one's covering him. Franks throws it to him, and it's just short. It's out of the guy's reach, and it was just like, it was very frustrating. And like, I like the play design, but the execution just wasn't there, and it took him a while to get going. In the Kentucky game, it took him a while. You saw in the fourth quarter, he was hitting his people, and we drove down. Scored that long touchdown drive, and so you see that as the game gets going, he gets a little bit better, but he's starting off kind of shaky, and so they have to work on that, and maybe it's because it's new defenses, and you're not really sure how each team's going to play, and so I don't know what it is, but I'd like to see that a little bit more. But I think it has to start with the running game first, because I've said this before, our strength, I think, our best unit, or at least one of them, is the running backs. Mm-hmm. We have some really good running backs, although we just lost Malik Davis, broke his foot in this game.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That's too bad.
But we still have three decent running backs, and I think we need to lean on them first and then go to Franks. But I do like his athleticism when he scrambles. I think he's making some pretty good decisions as far as when to run on scrambles. But yeah, the pocket presence early on is just not where it needs to be. But like I said, Freddie Swain, he's becoming a playmaker. He's got a couple touchdown catches, and now he has his punt return. I don't know if he's a go-to receiver just yet. I don't know if we have a go-to receiver, which is good and bad. It's good in that the defenses have to look for everyone to cover. But the bad part is, man, if you need a third down, who are you going to go to?
Right.
And I'd like to have that one guy. I thought Tyreek Cleveland was going to be that guy, but he really hasn't. Van Jefferson, the transfer from Ole Miss, starting to look like maybe he might be that guy, but no one's really stepping up.
Gotcha. But, yeah, that touchdown to Jefferson was really pretty by Franks. That's the kind of stuff you would hope to see more if you're a Gator fan, I would assume.
Yeah, and so we have flashes of that, but it's not consistent. And I'd like to see more tight end. The tight ends are blocking well. I will give them that. That long run, Scarlett's touchdown run, set up because of the tight end pulled and made a great block. So yeah, it's a lot to work on. It was good enough because he had help from the defense and special teams. But I know there's going to be games where the offense has to win it for you, and I don't know if we're there yet. We can't just rely on the offense. But that's not what Mullen wants. He wants all phases,
sure.
Which I like, and I understand. But our offense needs to catch up. The special teams is way ahead. Defense is starting to catch up to there, but offense has a ways to go, I feel, if you want to win games in the SEC.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that Pierce Pirine is still a pretty good one too. If you're gonna go there, Pierce impressed with that long touchdown run. I think it was like 68 yards. So, you certainly see that. Overall, as a team, am I seeing that just the second quarter is where EF is just gonna excel and just kind of, it's just live off of that success, if you will, in the second half?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the first game, but Kentucky outscored us 14-0 in the third, and Colorado State outscored us 7-0 in the third. So I don't like how we're coming out of the second half. But, like you said, the second and the fourth quarters have been real strong for us. And it's weird, like, you feel good and you feel happy with the win, but you're like, man, there are some key things that you're still a little bit worried about. Still, like the safety play, they got beat again. They got beat a couple times with Kentucky. So you'd like to clean that up a little bit, and you'd like to get Franks a little more confident. And I'd like to get the running backs and tight ends early and often.
Absolutely. One play stood out to me. There was a quote pick six that didn't count. Number 2, I forget the guy's name, but that's still a good effort. And to me, those plays matter. I'm glad to see that happen. I know it was called back by a penalty, I believe, but
it was.
The other surprising thing about this game, I didn't even realize it when I was watching, that Colorado State ran more plays on offense.
Yeah, I think it was like 80-40. I think they ran 80 plays and we ran 40.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's nuts. That's nuts. And to think that we won by 38 is nuts. Again,
special teams. I mean, you run that. That was kind of differential Florida State Va Tech. You see that one punt return for a touchdown. That changes things drastically. We're just going to keep going back to that, right? Just the punt returns and the blocks. that just can kill a team. Yeah,
I do like this though. Through 3 games, we blocked 4 kicks.
Yep.
So that's a really good stat, and I hope that continues. But at that point of the game, when we did block it and recovered it, everyone's like, okay, we can breathe now. We have a little bit of space, and now we can run our offense, which we did.
Yeah.
So it was very key into this. And then later on, Swain. It was funny listening to Mullen in one of his press conferences. Not that punt return, but the punt return prior. Freddie Swain was like, "Don't even worry about getting the offense in the field. I'm going to take this one back."
Oh.
And Mullen was like, he was just a little bit early on that, but he kind of predicted. He's like, he kind of predicted it. But Swain, man, he's starting to become a breakout guy.
I'm starting to fall in love with Dan Mullen's press conferences. I mean, he wore the shoes preseason, and then halftime, he's like, I got the veins popping out of the neck. This guy's full of one-liners. This is great.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. He's one of those guys that loves to talk. Muschamp did not like to talk. Meyer kind of liked to talk. McElwain liked to talk. He wasn't good at it, but he liked to talk. Mullen really likes to. You want to talk? Oh, I'll talk. You want to talk to me? Oh, I'll talk to you. Yeah, he kind of has that feel. It was that someone referred to him as Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation.
Right.
I kind of see it, especially when we first came to Gainesville. He got off the plane doing that Gator chomp, all really excited. Someone called him Cousin Eddie online. I was like, that's really funny. It reminds me a lot of him.
I like it.
Yeah. So it's good stuff. Good stuff. So we're excited. We're excited that we won, but we got a bigger stuff coming up. And it's weird going into this game. You're like, after the loss to Kentucky, which you didn't expect to lose, and you're thinking, how bad is it? How bad are we where Kentucky beats us in the swamp? And you go into this game, you're like, they beat an SEC team. Are we in danger of an upset here? Are we in danger of a really, really long season, which we still might be? But it was nice to respond the way we did and to start off shaky, but really respond to them coming out in the third and finishing strong. So I do like that about our team as we go forward.
Yep. I feel like it was a pretty good game there for the Gators. You covered, I think, essentially all the things that Mullen would want the team to improve upon, and we're going to see corrected.
Yeah. I did. Well, one small note. Like I said, Malik Davis went out. He looks like he's going to be out for several weeks with a broken foot. CeCe Jefferson, our D-end, who had was suspended the first two games, he did make it back to the game. So it was nice to have some depth in the D line.
Okay.
And then David Reese, our middle linebacker, still has not come back from an injury, which every game this season he's been in the starting lineup but hasn't played. So it came out this week that he actually will be playing in Tennessee game, but we'll see. But so we need to get more depth because the injuries are starting to hit us, and I know every team goes through that. But even so much, you talked about this earlier, the secondary is depleted so much that our receiver Dre Massey is now going to be a D-back in emergency situations.
Oh, the old switcheroo. Okay.
Yeah. He didn't play this game at defensive back, but they're getting to that point where they're having to take from the offense because it's getting kind of low. And a lot of young guys playing the secondary, and I hope that doesn't really bite us later on in the season.
I can understand. Yeah. We had a guy, Urban Lane, did that a couple years ago, switch from wide receiver, so.
Right.
That can happen. All right. Well, cool. Any last thoughts on UF?
No. Good game. And as we mentioned, a W is a W, and we are happy about that.
Yeah. So let's move on to a happier subject, and that's Florida State versus Syracuse.
Yeah.
Phew.
What happened, man?
Obviously disappointment there. Yeah. Let me start with the positives, and there's a short list here, but then I'll kind of dive into that.
I've got a couple. If you don't touch on them, I do have a couple.
Okay. All right. Talking about plays that mattered and didn't count. DJ Matthews, what a punt return! I know this was early in the game, but he catches a punt inside the 10, and I like 6 or something. And he just runs, and he runs like 50, 60 yards, something like that. Called back on a penalty, but to me, I'm like, hey, he's trying. And that's the kind of speed we wanted. That was the first punt return Syracuse had allowed the entire season. So, kudos to us to step up and say, okay, we're not getting it done on offense right now. And that was early on to make that kind of decision, so good for him.
Right.
Again with the defense, stopping things inside the red zone. They had 1st and goal at the 1 and did not score a touchdown. Good for us. There was actually another series in the game. They had a 2nd and 1 from like midfield-ish and still couldn't convert because they tried to run it.
Right.
Both times they ran it 5 downs and didn't get any yards. So that is fantastic because you know they're going to run the ball, and the defensive line came up clutch. Passing game, it's 40, 50 in the nation, somewhere around there. DeAndre Francois is top 30 type-ish quarterback as far as yards go. So that's the one thing our offense can work on. We did have 7 tackles for loss. So back to the defensive side again. Right. Brian Burns, our defensive end, he was hurt and still kept playing. 3 tackles for loss, 2 of them sacks. So he was hurt for a little bit, had to go out and came back in. That's the
one of the points I was going to talk about is him. He's going to be playing on Sundays.
Yep.
He's pretty good. And he was one of those guys that maybe you look at some people that they could have quit, but he was not one of those guys. And he was playing hard even through an injury, and he was causing problems in the backfield. So he looked impressive.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you caught that too. That was probably the brightest spot of the day, and very glad to say that he just kept going. So. Yeah. So on to the opportunities. I'm going to start with a Francois quote. He says, "We keep taking turns making mistakes." Just sums it up right there. Only 240 yards of offense. We gave up 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. Should have been more. That means we've now given up 10 sacks on the year. There is no sense of urgency with this offense, and that was what Taggart was talking about and hyped up preseason. But there was one play. We get set with about 25 seconds left on the play clock. The defense for Syracuse looks completely confused, and we just stop and check back to the sideline. We don't snap the ball. We don't try to run a play.
Right.
There was no quick snap there. The biggest mistake I don't understand why Francois would do this. He had a poor read the last play of the first half. We're driving down. We finally have some momentum, and he chunks it to a guy on the sideline who can't get out of bounds. Clock runs.
Yeah, I was very confused about that. Initially I thought he did get out of bounds.
Yeah, I think his momentum stopped, and so he didn't make it out. And that's just not a mistake. He can make, especially when points are absolutely crucial for us right now.
Right, yeah.
So
don't put the receiver in that position. I understand what you're saying.
Yep. It would have been better if he didn't catch it, but I mean, you can't fight instinct. If the ball's thrown at you, your wide receiver, you're going to catch it. So I actually would have been curious to see if Aguayo would have attempted that field goal had it come to that, or if we actually would have trotted out our punter, Logan Tyler, because Logan Tyler's actually kicked a field goal, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago against Boston College, and he has the distance because he does our kickoffs and everything. So I was like, I was curious to see if he would have kicked. Didn't matter. I had plenty of chances to see our punter. He did have 10 punts, so that's always good. At least he's going to be up for ACC Punter of the Week or Special Teams Player of the Let me point this out. There are 6 teams in Division I that have had more punts than Florida State. Let me list them off real quick, Chris. This is a fun list. Let me tell you.
Okay.
New Mexico State, Wyoming, San Jose State, UTEP, SMU, and Miami of Ohio.
Okay.
So the pace we're going, especially when you go 1 of 14 on third downs, we're going to start catching these types of teams with most punts. Because of this, just our field position is just terrible. And you could probably sense the sarcasm in my voice there. But it just frustrating to know. You know what? We crossed the midfield once, just a reasonable stretch of the game. 62 rushing yards in the day. Cam Akers has another fumble. We had 1 quarterback hurry on defense, although we were causing some havoc in the backfield. We let Syracuse on defense have a balanced attack still. 222 yards rushing, 219 passing. And you can't let a team just dictate the entire tempo of the game and own the time of possession by about 16 minutes.
Right. It was an ugly game the first half. Like, just take Florida State fans out of it. Just looking at it, it was an ugly game. Yeah. And my wife and I were watching it, and she was like, this is hard to watch just because of the penalties on both sides. turnovers. Offenses couldn't do anything. Was it like 6-0 at halftime? What was the score at halftime? Something like that.
Yep.
It was just an ugly, and it was the pace of the game because they had to stop and figure. The refs couldn't figure out what they were doing. It was weird. It was a really weird game, and Syracuse outplayed FSU the whole game, and they outplayed them in the first half. But for FSU to only be down 6-0, I thought that was pretty good. And they were driving to potentially get 3 points, maybe even a touchdown, get a lead and go into the half. But coming away with nothing, I think, really hurt FSU going into the second half.
And what I didn't understand was, Eric Dungy leaves, who's one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the conference, and you don't go after the backup. And that's why I pointed the hurry up and the fact that we didn't rush this guy, because there's no reason why we shouldn't. I actually kind of saw it a little differently with the defense. Yeah, you're right. They kept our offense in the game, but at the same time, you look at the scoring, as you mentioned, and they just had to have been frustrated, and they had to start pressing a little bit. But I knew eventually they were going to break, and they're going to start giving up plays, because that's the kind of tempo Syracuse runs. And, I mean, yeah, we score a touchdown. That felt pretty good, I guess. But it's almost like pulling a nail out of a tire. Like, oh, I found it, but now I have a flat tire.
Right.
Where you're like, oh, we scored a touchdown against a meaningful team, but it's 23-7, and then, oh, there's an onside kick, and then they're going to score again. We just kind of saw that coming too.
Right.
So I actually give the defense credit for that's about where we would have thought they would have scored, somewhere in the high 20s, low 30s.
Right.
And that's about all you can expect. I was describing to some people what bend don't break means, and I was like, yeah, they're playing it perfectly. You bend, you don't break. You're going to give up a couple of touchdowns, and as long as you hold a team to the 21-24 range, you should expect your offense to score enough to win you the game. Yeah. And the defense did their part.
Yeah. And I knew you could just tell the way the game was going. Whenever Syracuse finally got that first touchdown, you're like, it's over. Yep. Just the way that, because FSU was fighting so hard just to stay in the game, their offense was doing nothing. And I'm like, they can overcome 6 points, but I don't know if they can overcome 13 points. Just the way that they were playing.
Right.
And the floodgates opened after that.
Yep. So it was definitely a rough one. We even before Syracuse joined the ACC, we'd play them a few times and had no trouble with them, and so clearly that streak has snapped. And there's a lot of concern. You look at the offensive line is the biggest one. It's really because of the injuries. We had Dickerson is out. You have to play musical chairs. You have to shuffle some guys in, and then if insult on top of injury, literally. At the end of the game, we had another guy go out with an injury. So it's just you're going to have to do what you can. So going forward, here's what I hope to see. I would love, just like you were mentioning with the Gators, why don't we try a run-pass type of formula? Yeah. I know it's going to be rough to see some negative plays, but we've got to start forcing the issue on that. And then I think I saw that some of the media and even Taggart said today, we're going to try and go with like a rolling pocket or whatever may work. And so something like that, just to try and get things moving. That's what I'd like to see in the next 2-3 games.
Right. Yeah, the tackles, mainly the left tackle, but both tackles, they just seem like they're matadors, just kind of away, letting the ball go through sometimes.
Yep.
And I thought it was just the one defensive end. I think his name was I forget the name. I think it was 55. But then another guy blew by the left tackle. I'm like, nope, it's the left tackle.
Right.
And Francois, man, I don't know how he's even standing up half the time because there's people in his face the whole game.
Yep, and he's got to get frustrated, and you see that over and over and over, and it's going to affect you mentally. So I think there were even guys crying when they left the game. I mean, that's just to the point. It's how frustrating it can be.
Right.
So crying's not always bad. I'm not saying that. In fact, I love that they have that much emotion. Because I know that they're going to care, and they're going to work hard. So, it was a rough one. The Noles fall to 1-2 and then 0-2 in the conference. So,
both our teams are still looking for that first conference win.
Indeed.
And I didn't think that we'd be going into week 4, not one of us having a conference win. I just want your thought on this. Now, what are your thoughts on pulling Francois? Is it too early? I know it's 3 games in the season, 3 games into the system, just like Frank's. But is it more the offensive line, or do you think a quarterback change would help?
Yeah, I'll quote Taggart on that. He says, why would I put in Blackman? He'll get hit just as much. He'll be ineffective, just like Francois was. And it's almost, I don't want to say the lesser of two evils, but I don't know a better phrase, where you look at Francois, and one of the almost things I put in the positive was the fact that maybe he's going to rush a little more. That was another aspect that was missing, that kind of option. I can pull it and run. There's no run pass option. He's rushed for -3 yards this season so far. So
yeah.
Now that's
what I was thinking. If Blackman was in, you have that threat now. I don't know about passing, who's better. You might speak more to that, but I think Blackman gives you at least something to think about more if you're a defense, especially like a linebacker. Instead of dropping the coverage, you have to at least respect his game to run more.
Yeah, I actually still probably think Francois is a little better runner. If we turn him loose, now, that's the problem. I think he might be just kind of favoring that knee, and he's not taking off on purpose, which can continue to hurt us because that's not an option. When the quarterback runs, then the defense has to defend 11, not 10. So
right,
makes a big change. And I think Francois has bigger upside, and I've kind of seen that with some of the throws where some of them I'm like, wow, he's just. He's shying away because he knows he's going to get hit. Could be some of it.
Yeah.
There's a couple interceptions here and there. We're like, oh, gosh, just when we're getting momentum, he does that. But I still think Francois is the right guy. You may see Blackman, and maybe this is where you go. You insert him in for a series or two to kind of give him a jolt or some kind of stimulant. But I still think Francois is the guy going forward.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And that's a tough one. I do like what's it? Is it Gavin, the receiver?
Yeah. So that was I'm gonna toot my own horn here because he was in my top 5 of returning offensive players returning this year, and most of the other depth charts and everything I was like, oh, he's 3rd or 4th, and no, turns out he's our leading receiver so far with Nyquan Murray being 2nd. So it's he's seen some improvement. I don't know if he is the go-to, quote-unquote, because even this week when I saw the depth chart, they're going to move it around again. So, But, I mean, numbers-wise, he's number 1 so far.
Okay, yeah, he looks pretty good size, and looks like he wants to be there and wants to be the guy. So, that's some bright spot there.
Sure. And actually, they used Cam Akers quite a bit to catch some passes, so that's that's your guy. Get him 20 touches a game, however you can do it.
Right.
All right. Well, that's my thoughts on Florida State. Obviously, a frustrating loss, but good for Syracuse, I guess. They've struggled. They snapped a 6-game conference winning streak. Anyway, that's all I care to talk about them anymore.
Yeah, understood.
All right. So, moving on to the rest of the state. Let's see. UCF doesn't play a game. Their game ends up being canceled. They were going to play North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that was not going to go well for the Tar Heels. I thought, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit, so I'll tease it now. I thought that North Carolina might be the worst team in the ACC. It turns out they're worse than that.
Okay.
I really thought that East Carolina was one of the worst teams, at least on the Eastern Seaboard, and they beat North Carolina like 41-19.
Right.
So, ipso facto, now the Tar Heels are probably the worst team.
The worst.
And I think it's going south, and UNC's coach Fedora is probably going to be fired by the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see him lasting the whole season, honestly.
Yeah. So it was probably a good thing they didn't play UCF. They would have lost pretty badly.
Yeah. He survives one more week.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Miami, they played at Toledo, and you look at the score, 49-24. It looks like it's a blowout, but if you watch the game, Miami jumped out all over them. But Toledo came back and made it like interesting in the middle of the game there. But then, at the end of the game, fourth quarter, Miami just stomped on them and really just showed who's the better team. Their passing game was starting to look real impressive, and they got some impressive receivers. Not so big on Rozier. I think it's more the receivers.
Okay.
A couple of them are real big receivers, and you might help me out with the name of this. He wears number 4. He has made some spectacular plays this whole season. Made another one this game too. So they were just a better team, and Toledo come out swinging in the middle of the game there, but Miami put them away like a team that's with that much talent should do. So.
Yeah, kind of a weird one. I don't know why Miami agreed to go to Ohio to play that one. I think it'd have enough cachet you would make Toledo travel to them, but
there's that word again. Love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
love it.
I don't even think about it anymore. It just happens.
No, it's when you get you a shirt, it's just like your face and just cachet. If we get to the point where our podcast can make shirts, that's one of the first ones we're making.
Hey,
file that away right now.
We should make that a goal on Patreon. More subscribers get a T-shirt that says cachet.
Here we go.
Yep. No, yeah,
yeah. You're right, but you're right. They're a big enough team to where they should be having the Toledos of the world come to them. But kudos to them for going there and handling their business.
Sure, and I know that Toledo has a really good passing game as well. So I knew that was kind of what you would expect from the Rockets, and they have a really good core, probably the best in their conference, really. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm just glad that Miami didn't embarrass the ACC. That's a recurring trend. So last week, South Florida beats Georgia Tech. That looks pretty bad. UNC loses to East Carolina, and then this week, hey, maybe South Florida's for real. They come back from being down against Illinois and win. So now they have a win against an ACC and a Big Ten team. So the American, surprisingly, looking pretty good. You also got Houston knocking off Arizona pretty badly.
Right.
And, you got UCF on their winning streak continuing. So, yeah, good gun for mine win. And you were right about Barnett, the quarterback at South Florida. He's for real.
Yeah, I think so.
He has over 400 yards passing in this one game alone, and he's about 11th in the nation behind, like, the Texas Techs of the world. So that's pretty impressive. Charlie Strong had some concerns with rebuilding, especially in defense, and certainly some things he can still work on there. But they're ahead of schedule as far as I'm concerned. So good for the Bulls.
Yeah. They're looking impressive early.
Sure.
Excited to see them the rest of the year. Yeah. Next up, Florida Atlantic. They're hosting Bethune-Cookman. 49-28. Not much there. FAU dropped 29 in the first quarter. They could have stopped playing offense and would have won by 1 point.
Wow.
But I'm surprised that Bethune-Cookman put up 28, honestly.
Yeah.
But Florida Atlantic still looks like they're rolling, doing pretty good. They had a couple. They almost had 2 100-yard running backs in this game.
Oh.
They had White had 100 and Singletary had 84, but Singletary had 5 touchdowns.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
That's impressive.
That's just the red zone guy. That's
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's good. The fighting Lane Kiffins keep rolling.
Yeah, we got an interesting one coming up next week. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, FIU, how'd they do? All
right, so FIU, they hosted UMass and dropped 63 on them. 63-24. They're having a decent season so far. No, it's nothing crazy. Again, we're going to get to a bigger game they have coming up.
Sure.
But they handled business against UMass at home. 63. It's impressive.
Yeah, it's good for your team to have a big win like that. Certainly helps. Yeah. So, all right. Well, pretty good. I've seen some media concerns about what's going on in the state of Florida. So, just real quick thought on that. Yeah, it's a bit of a shock even to us.
Yeah.
How you had the upset, and I'm going to call it an upset with Kentucky beating Florida. You have
Oh, yeah.
Florida State off to a rough start. You have, arguably Central Florida, UCF, the best team in the state. You could argue. I personally put Miami a little above them, but you could certainly argue it and have a good case. You have South Florida rolling; they're still undefeated. That's not the way we assumed we'd be going into the last week of the month. This state being looking at this kind of landscape. So
yeah. I have a question for you. I was thinking about this. If you were right now at this point in the season, if they said, hey, the NCAA said, hey, we're going to have a all Florida football tournament, and we'll throw in FAMU to make it 8. How would you seed them right now?
Seed, okay.
Yeah.
So like I just said, I'll put Miami 1, UCF 2.
I think that the top and the bottom are going to be easy, but the middle is tough.
It is. Obviously, FAMU's going to be 8. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 3. Is it? So we're looking at South Florida, FAU. South Florida, probably, right?
I put South. I don't know.
I don't know.
I still have confidence the Gators would beat South Florida. I don't know if you've ever played them, but I put Florida 3, South Florida 4, Florida Atlantic 5, just because their schedule is just not conducive. Florida State 6. Who else is left? FIU 7.
FFIU. Okay. So you put Florida State up lower than FAU?
Right now, if we were to play tomorrow, we wouldn't. That's a tough one too, I guess, because you saw what Oklahoma did to them, and certainly we're not Oklahoma, but they play in just a weaker conference. Just their competition and their recruits just aren't there. So you could talk me into Florida State being higher. In fact, I would go ahead and say that. Okay,
and this is all neutral site. I guess we'd have to take it out of Florida. Anyways,
it's a good one.
I would put USF 3rd.
Okay.
Just because they've beaten more decent people than we have.
Yep.
Us and FAU, I don't know. Maybe us.
I would take the Gators for sure. I
think our special teams gets us to that. Then FAU, FIU, then FAMU. Okay.
So you have a 6 out of those 8. Oh, that's kind of where I had us too. I would maybe put us 5th above Florida Atlantic.
No, you're right. I would put them 5th. I mean, they did look pretty awful. I'm not gonna lie, but I think they have that potential. That if they hit it, it's open. And I like their defense. I really like FSU's defense going against FAU.
Don't get me wrong. There's ways Florida Atlantic would win that game.
Yes. Yeah.
There's certainly a lot the Noles have to work on.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking about who's the one team in Florida I could pick Division I to beat? Florida International. That's the one I bring on the Panthers.
Okay.
That's about it.
All right. So side note, fans, if you're listening, hit us up, Facebook, whatever. Just at this point, give me your seeds. Give us your seeds. How would you seed the state?
I like that. That's a really good one, Chris.
And if you want to go crazy, maybe even play out the whole bracket. But just how would you play out the bracket? Just real quick. We don't want to spend too much time into it.
Let's see. I would have Florida State maybe winning their first game, and that's about it.
Okay.
I think UF would be the sleeper in that 8-team bracket.
All right.
They would make maybe the semis, have a shot to win that game, and you would have the Hurricanes with UCF. And I'm going to take the Hurricanes to win it. Okay. I think their defense and their passing game is enough. And the UCF, they have a great punter in Mac Loudermilk. They have a great kicker, so their special teams is decent. Their defense, it's probably in the 70s or 80s overall. Even last season, that's improvement from then. You see their daunted offense, and you forget to see the numbers on defense are kind of lacking. So I think that Miami would be able to wear down, and it would still be a very close game, but I'd take the Hurricanes.
Okay. I think I really like UCF. I'm almost tempted to take them in that tourney, and I agree. UF is the dark horse.
Sure.
But at this point, though, Miami's got. I think you have to pick Miami.
Yep.
But I could see, man, I could see even USF causing some trouble.
Yeah, they might take one of those games in overtime.
Yeah.
Take it down to the wire. Man, we would never have this conversation 20 years ago. This is crazy.
No, absolutely. It'd be like, well, a round robin between Miami, Florida, State. That's.
And even in the 90s, Miami had their struggles. So Florida State, Florida.
Yeah. Right. That always was settled. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Good
just so if you're listening, hit us up just to see what your thoughts were.
We'll throw that up there on the Facebook page. We'll see what kind of reaction we get.
Yeah.
All right. So we have some games coming up next week. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Put some for Florida State, a little sun on the horizon, if you will. But we'll go to UF's game first, and this is the point you said is the inflection point. This is where things get real serious for the Gators. You got Tennessee. So what are your thoughts on this game coming up?
I'm nervous. And I have to look at the rest of the schedule, like what games, especially after Kentucky lost, like what games can we legit win? Like what games are guaranteed? And that number got smaller. And this game, I thought we were going to win, but it's going to be a close game. Now, I just don't know. I don't know too much about Tennessee. They lost to West Virginia pretty bad, but West Virginia's a pretty good team. And they beat two other teams. Their defense, in the last two games, they only gave up 3 points. So they have a good defense. Pruitt's a defensive guy.
Yep.
And they have a good running game. Kentucky had a good defense and a good running game. And you saw what happened with that. So that kind of scares me a little bit. So it's our first road game. I'm interested to see how we're going to respond. I'm kind of nervous about this. I still think we are more talented than Tennessee, but it seems like they're at least clicking more than we are, and they have more of an identity than we do. So that kind of scares me a little bit.
Gotcha. This is a serious question. Has Tennessee even been relevant the last 10 years?
No.
I didn't think so. And that's why I'm going to take the Gators to win this one pretty easily.
Yeah.
They just have too much to rebuild, and they're living off their 98 national title hopes, or national championship, excuse me. And I don't know, the recruiting is going to get there for the Vols, but they just had a pretty bad showing as a good team, and I just really don't see the Gators would do that if they had played West Virginia or East. By the way, the coach at East Tennessee State used to be Florida State's offensive coordinator, or as much as Florida State would have one under Jimbo Fisher, Randy Sanders, and he was joking about having actually win that game, and
No.
Obviously he knew what was it, 59-3. I mean, just absolutely terrible. But I agree it's going to be close because I'm sure Tennessee has saved some things, and they're only going to get better as the season goes on. But I think the Gators win comfortably. Single possession game, I'm going to assume.
Yeah, well, in that case, I do like our kicker. I do like our special teams. Our kicker is pretty solid. I'm pretty sure he's perfect on the season, minus what the one ref says in the Kentucky game.
I was actually going to point that out, and I forgot. The fact that the Gator commentator for the game was like, and he starts a quote new streak. So that's a good weapon to have, especially in close games. Man, I wish he had that too. That's another thing about Florida State. What the heck happened to our kicker? 104 on the year. Aguayo just not with it right now. Anyway, sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Yeah, these road games, it's important to have a solid kicker. It's a freshman, and he's coming in playing pretty good, and so I do feel confident. Obviously, more confident after you win, and I do like that we are controlling special teams. I'm worried about the running game. If we stop the running game, I think we win. No problem at all.
Okay.
And our linebackers stepped up last game. David Reese, by all accounts, should actually be in this game, which is going to help. So that makes me feel a little bit better. But I'm a little bit more nervous than I was, say, 2 weeks ago. So we'll see.
Okay. All right, good thoughts. So on the road, Florida State goes back home, friendly confines of Doak Campbell Stadium, hosting Northern Illinois. So you thought Florida State's offense was bad. Northern Illinois is worse.
Yeah.
They have 241 yards a game right now. And so this is just not going to be a fun game to watch. I already know that. I'm sorry for the fans because these are both two bottom 20 offenses in college football. So, 20 to 14, 20 to 16, something like that. I think Florida State wins, but you got to be careful because Northern Illinois can beat you some ways. Their offensive line, defensive line are the strength of their team. So they're very competitive in conference play, but on the road, I just don't see a way that they can get things going.
Right.
In Conference USA, this may look a lot like the Samford game we played, to be completely honest.
What time of day is this game at?
3:30.
Okay, so you could conceivably take a nap the first half and just watch the second half and not really miss much, is what you're saying.
Yeah, something like that. For the other fan, there's other games for your viewing pleasure that'll be way more enticing for certain.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned earlier, Orange Bowl rematch from a few years ago. Not that matters now, but yeah, it's something that's kind of softened the blow from last week. And I kind of put this on Twitter earlier this week. Willie Taggart will have to put everything out there to win this game comfortably. And if you're gonna do it, this is probably the game. You got to get the fan base back. You got to reel back in the fans. Let everyone have some things to cheer about, especially at home. Get things moving back in the right direction as much as you can. Because looking at the schedule going forward, and I don't want to call anything too soon, but the only other two games I would imagine Florida State would be favored in would be Wake Forest and Louisville. So you look at both of those games are coming up in the next 4 weeks. Those are games you have to win, and this starts here. Win this game and then move on.
Yeah, I think if he wants fans to calm down, he doesn't just have to win. He has to win convincingly and look good. You can't have another Samford win.
Right, and that's my fear. That's exactly what this game will look like? Is an eke 'em out game where you struggle to move and score, and you let your defense do what they can. But it's unfair to the defense to let them continually be put in those positions.
Right.
So here's to the Noles rebounding, and I do think we will win this game, but obviously I am a little nervous.
Yeah. 3 games into it, you only won one, and barely against Samford. Yeah, I think every game here on out you should probably be nervous about until they figure it out.
Sure. Give me some reason, and then we'll kind of turn the tables there. But until then, yep.
Right.
So, all right, yeah. So around the state, we'll go to UCF first. They come off of an unexpected bye week from the hurricane. They didn't have to play North Carolina, so an extra week to prepare for Florida Atlantic. So,
that's a good one.
This is the Friday night in Orlando. I would have actually guessed this game to been a 7 to 10 point UCF advantage, according to the odds. But actually, I saw today 13.5 is what they're favored at. So, from Florida Atlantic's perspective, what do you expect, or what are some things that of note for the game?
If this game is in Boca, I'm taking FAU.
Really?
I think they're pretty decent. Yeah. UCF, new coach, new system. Maybe not new system, a new coach. FAU kind of knows what they're doing now. They got a good run game. But at UCF, Friday night, I think UCF, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be real close. I say UCF by a touchdown. But I think it's going to be a fun one, though.
For sure. And I think the only question here is, will UCF's defense be able to stop the run for FAU? And I think you're going to have to kind of live with some big plays from Singletary, and that's just the way that they're kind of schemed up. I'd like to think that UCF kind of pumped the brakes against their South Carolina State team, which is their FCS win for the year.
Right.
They only won 38-0. You would expect it a little higher. I mean, last year they put 77 on Austin Peay, so that's kind of a shock. And Mackenzie Milton just looked a little off. You can live with that, especially in a game and you're constantly winning. It doesn't really matter that much. But I personally don't think this will be close. I think UCF wins very comfortably. Yes, I don't know about covering the 13.5 spread, but I'll take them by 12. How about that?
Okay, you're going. Okay, that's good. It's going to be a high scoring game, I think. It'll be real fun to watch. I think FAU is going to hang around. I think UCF will be like up 14 late. FAU scores a late touchdown, and maybe has to go to onside kick, with a minute left, but doesn't get it. I think it's going to be one of those, like, UCF's going to be comfortable, but FAU's not going to just roll over.
I like that. I think late in the game, FAU has one last grasp, but I could easily see it like they don't score in that last possession, and it just doesn't look that close. So we'll see. I wonder how recruiting is affected by this game. It's a smart one for both schools to schedule, really. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's not the only in-state game.
No, it's not
this week because we have Miami hosting FIU, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a beatdown. The 1 versus the 7 seed.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be much of a game. FIU's playing better this year, but Miami's they're a step above, maybe a couple steps above.
Sure. Butch Davis seeing his old team again.
Oh, that's right. Butch. This is the Butch Davis Bowl.
There you go. Okay. yes, indeed.
Interesting.
So, comfortable win there for the Hurricanes. I agree.
Yeah.
And then to round out the state, South Florida host East Carolina. This will not be close. South Florida may win by 3 touchdowns, to be completely honest. ECU does come off a bye week because they were supposed to play Virginia Tech, so an extra week of just rest and very mediocre football. If I had the ability to take out a loan, I would bet a lot of money that USF wins this game.
Okay.
Just, you're looking for a beach house, this is the time. Cash in. There is no way East Carolina wins this game. I'm just going to put it that way.
Brandon's lock of the week?
I don't know, something like that, I guess. I think the spread was like 24.5. I don't know that they covered that, but there's absolutely no way East Carolina wins this game. I'm going to call it.
Plus, I kind of leaning towards you as far as guaranteeing, because East Carolina has, you got to think their players have other stuff to be worrying about. With the hurricane hitting their homes this week, football's probably one of the last things on their mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might lock it in too.
Yeah, and all the fans of North Carolina, I know that they're doing all they can to put aside all the thoughts, but it's impossible to do that. And,
right.
Scheduling like this, I mean, UCF unfortunately now is back to 11 games again, which it was last year because of the hurricane in Florida, and the East Carolina Pirates now down to that. But you can see how the Florida schools were affected last year, the hurricane scheduling and having to move things around. It certainly can get into your psyche.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, it looks like a fun week, actually. A lot of Florida teams playing each other. So
yeah, I'm excited about that.
We got a fun bracket out of today's show, top 8. So we mentioned our Facebook page. What are some other ways, Chris, fans can get in touch with us and give us some feedback and share some of the thoughts on this week's and last week's games?
Oh yeah, the best website, FloridaFocusPodcast.libsyn.com. Libsyn, Libsyn. A lot of activity on Facebook and YouTube at Florida Focus Podcast. Twitter at Florida Focus Pod. Please feel free to email us at floridafocuspodcast@yahoo.com. Give us your seeds for the All Florida tournament, whatever you want to call it. Also, if you have a name for that tournament, hit us up with that. The Sunshine State. Anyways, email us that. And also Snapchat and Instagram, FL Focus Pod. And, of course, our Patreon account.
Indeed. So we'll look forward to all the feedback there. With the fans, it's a long season. Just keep that in mind. So
yes.
A lot of football, and it's a fun distraction. Real quickly before we sign off for the day, I just want to thank Canada, our special guest from our episode last week, for coming in and giving us some perspective from the West Coast on Willie Taggart, the Pac-12. You and I put together a pretty extensive list of questions for him, and he was kind enough to come on the show, so thank you. You can find them, by the way, at podcastcfb on Twitter. Luke and Canada are a great listen. Both of us have listened to them, and they certainly have a lot of expertise in college football. So be sure to head over there and give them a follow because they're fantastic.
Oh, yeah. And I was talking to you off air before, but it was a great gesture by him to do that, to take the time.
Sure.
And it was a great interview, and he could tell he's been doing this a while. So it was a fun listen. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and do that. And like Brandon said, go ahead and follow them and start listening to them as well. Yeah.
So thanks again to Canada, and we appreciate that. Any last thoughts, Chris, before we sign up for the night?
No. Excited to. I always like to start to turn the corner and start looking forward to the next game. And whenever we do this helps me, and hopefully it helps others to start looking forward to upcoming games.
You got it. Well said. All right, fans. Well, thank you so much for the listen. 5-star rating on iTunes always helps. We appreciate the feedback. This is Brandon saying go Noles.
Go Gators.